I'll take this question. What was the moment where you knew the business was going to take off? It's another really, really great question, and I have a really great answer and story for that. When Karen and I started, she was, I want to say, 7 months pregnant with our first daughter. And we were both working full-time jobs, doing Stewart+Brown on the side, and we'd made some protos. It was all organic cotton T-shirts, and we had a couple of different styles of bags that were actually made out of surplus fiber. One of my favorites of that, and it's a whole other story in itself, and this is kind of how we really got going with her collection, is Karen had...
Why don't you explain what surplus fabric is, too?
It's a great suggestion. What surplus fabric is it's basically where we buy existing fabrics that are primarily other manufacturers' production overruns. So there'll be, say for example, 100 to 500 to 1,000 yards of a really great fabric that was too small of a lot for the big apparel company to do a production run because we're smaller. We can actually buy that. So that's one of the things that we like to do is basically use other people's waste. And if we weren't using it, it'd probably end up in a landfill somewhere or just collect dust on the shelf. So that's another great way of delivering on our mission of working towards sustainability. So anyway, so getting back to the story, so this one of the bags, and I love telling the story that we launched with was Karen came back from Patagonia and she had this surplus fabric she bought from them and was leftover fly fishing wader fabric, ripstop nylon, and organic cotton canvas. She brought it home, and I remember it, and she just kind of brought it home. We're like, okay, this is really cool, but what are we going to do with it? We just kind of looked at it and like, wow, it's really cool. And Karen came up with a genius idea because we travel a lot, and we're kind of tired of throwing our toiletries in plastic bags. And you shouldn't be throwing anything in plastic bags. And hopefully they'll be outlawed soon. But so she was just sort of like, how about this? How about a dot kit? We can do a dot kit. So that was one of the first bags we made, and it's integral to the story I'm about to tell. So we call it the box bag, I think. Mm-hmm. So Karen is 7.5 months pregnant, and we created this little collection, and Karen and I came from design and marketing production, so we had absolutely no sales background whatsoever. So we didn't really know how to sell anything, and we didn't really realize that because we were, foolishly, I guess, just kind of tripping on the fact that we're doing our own collection and getting to design it. But, who cares if you can't sell it? You don't have a business. So then all of a sudden we had to figure out the sales part. So I remember we went up to Santa Barbara and we went into a few stores that we thought, like, okay, well, maybe this is the kind of store that would buy our stuff. And we didn't know what we were doing, and we stumbled into those stores and just to kind of show them the line and be kind of like, hey, does this look like something you'd buy? And I'll never forget, the first store we went into is Pierre Lafond in Montecito, which is still it's a great store and still one of our best customers. And we went in there just to kind of show it, and the buyer was really sweet, a gal named Emily, and she was nice enough to look at the line and sits down, and we go through our whole thing, and then she pulls out an order form. She's like, okay, I'm going to start writing an order. And we're like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, we couldn't believe it. We're like, we're not selling anything. We just want to know if you'd buy something like this. So that was kind of a key thing. And then we went to, I don't know, 3 or 4 other stores. And every store we went to, it was the same thing. It's like, people were just like, they were ready to buy. And we're like, wow, this is kind of cool, and it kind of makes sense. But what I'll add to that, though, is that's one of the benefits that you have when you're dealing with small, independent brick-and-mortar retailers is that you can walk through the door and you can engage the buyer and you can have a conversation, you can show them something, and they can write an order. Like, that would never happen in a department store. And furthermore, we had a real story to tell. We had this organic, sustainability story, and the independent retailers, like, they want to hear that story. They want to listen because they want to know how to sell it and how to position it, and it's also up to them to educate their customers. So people just really seem to love our story. And they clearly wanted to write an order, so we were pretty stoked at that point. So to make a long story short, we ended up getting a showroom just like, I remember it was like a day or two right before market started. It was on Halloween Day of 2002. And we have all of our samples, and we're all stoked, and we had a couple of appointments that we had set up, and the owner of the showroom, wasn't actually going out and pounding the pavement the way that we were. She's kind of opening the doors and kind of getting a reaction. And I remember we had a couple of orders like right off the bat, and then it got kind of slow that day. And I remember going in there later that afternoon and getting some feedback. Karen and I were both there because we were actually buying stuff for my mom's store in Montana also. We worked as buyers as well. And I remember going in there and the owner of the showroom was just sort of like, I got to tell you guys, you got a couple of orders, right off the bat, but I showed it to a couple of other key buyers, and it's like they didn't have time for the organic thing, and they think nobody cares about organic and blah, blah, blah. So the showroom owner's like, I hate to tell you guys this because you're so passionate and everything, and your wife's 7 months pregnant, and we're looking like little lost puppies. And she goes, but I think maybe you should just put the whole thing on hold, and maybe we'll come back and try again next season. We were devastated. We were just absolutely devastated. And we just kind of looked at each other and we're like, are you kidding me? Like, the show just started. It's like, this is great. And it's like, we've got this story to tell. And it's like, there's nothing like this out there and blah, blah, blah. She's basically like, yeah, no one cares. So we kind of like put our tails between our legs and kind of went back to buying and whatnot. And then it's probably about 2 hours later, we went to go back and check in with the showroom. And we walked through the door. And there was, on the couch, there were 4 or 5 Japanese buyers sitting there. And I mean, you can see the hip Japanese buyers a mile away. And we had, I don't know, 15 of our pieces were up on the wall, and paper was out, and they were writing and writing and writing, looking at all of our stuff. And we walked through the door because we have a huge amount of respect for Japanese, especially from a design standpoint, because they just get it and they care about the details. And Karen and I just looked at each other and were like, okay, I'm not going to use the word that we thought to say to the showroom owner, but we're like, basically like, see, we told you so, this is amazing. And they wrote a huge order. And she was just jumping up and down, literally, meaning the showroom owner, and so were we. And not only that, but it was one of the best stores in Japan. And we're like, okay, people get it, this is going to work. And, we've never looked back. Did you read that one?
Just to repeat, the email for the giveaway is tomsofmainegift@gmail.com. Did you guys get that? tomsofmainegift. .com? Yeah, okay. Would you consider Mongolian cashmere to be the highest quality cashmere? This is from Lisa. Yes, and it's proven to be. It has the finest microns available in the cashmere offering. The conditions that the cashmere is grown in is very harsh, as I should say. It's very cold, it's very arid, and it's very high elevation. And there's not many places you can replicate that in the world. So those conditions make the fiber the best micron that you can buy in the world.
Let me correct you. There is no place in the world that can replicate that, because they actually have tried. They've actually taken cashmere goats and taken them to the highlands of Scotland, to the Dolomites in Italy, and so on and so forth. But it's really those conditions that are specific to what they call the Mongolian steppe, that are the incredibly harsh climate, the devastating winters, the kind of nutrients in the soil that grow the kind of grass that the goats actually eat on, and just the extremely arid air. All of that is conducive to creating the finest cashmere in the world. And consequently, 95% of the world's cashmere comes from both Inner Mongolia and Outer Mongolia. So there's a pretty good chance if you're buying cashmere, you're getting it from one of those places. We get ours from Outer Mongolia, and Outer Mongolia is far superior. And part of the reason is because it's higher. It's a higher elevation, and the conditions, like Karen said, are a lot harsher than they are in Inner Mongolia.